This is Deckard, live from the Evrloot office, and we have Lou,
Hi there.
two of three co-founders from Evrloot, and we thought we'd give you an introduction into our daily life, into our daily struggles, into our plans for Evrloot in this small series, Bringing Evrloot to the Peak, which is meant to be kind of a mini podcast. And it's also meant to be kind of an unscripted talk between friends as well, that focuses on the building experience.
Yeah, basically we thought it would be cool to kind of keep you guys in the loop. A lot of stuff is happening all the time, and we sometimes forget that as an outsider it can be hard to keep up, especially ourselves looking at the space and seeing so much stuff happening. Sometimes we're like, okay, what the hell? What happened here? So we're kind of trying to keep you guys in the loop and bring you some personal thoughts, some personal experience, etc.
You said personal, so first personal things is let's talk a bit about us both, where we come from and where we are right now. I'm right now in Regensburg, small medieval town in Germany, and Lou.
Yeah, I live in Oslo right now, so in Norway. I actually do come to Germany next week, so I'm going to be in the office as well. Exciting times, but yeah, we all come from Regensburg, at least the co-founders. But I kind of, at least for now, moved away. But we do try to see ourselves pretty regularly, and obviously go to stuff like Decoded, Polkadot events in general to meet up and also meet you guys.
What is? I just detected the image you have on top of on my left, your right. Could you show what this is?
Yeah, sure. I got that from my precious co-founders for my birthday, but it's maybe some guys remember it. When we first decided to do Evrloot, we tried to set the mood and asked ourselves how can we do that the best way. So what we did is we went on Fiverr and kind of just puked over some artists and basically gave them a bunch of our thoughts and our inspirations, and asked them to come up with different art. I mean, if you notice the mask, that's my profile picture basically. And one of them was Loki, who kind of has this really old medieval ink drawing style, and we were really big fans of him. I think we probably commissioned him to do like 30 of those. They are way smaller than I thought in person, but they're still super cool. And yeah, I think we do have most of them in person, so we definitely gotta make like some sort of artwork out of it at some point. I thought of maybe creating like a big wall and just putting them next to each other, but they could almost be a bit boring. I wonder if we could come up with something cool there.
And they're not just printed out; they're really made on, like, he treats the paper with I don't know what the body, but it looks like ancient, and then he draws with real ink. So it is really a treat to look at.
Yeah, you can see it. It's quite cool for sure, and that's how our inspiration basically got ignited, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
We're approaching the 2-year anniversary anyway, right?
Yeah, not too far. In the future, I think around February, we decided to give this thing a go, and it's honestly been kind of crazy if you think about it. I mean, 2 years is a lot of time, but just the amount of experience I think both of us and the whole team went through, and also how many people we met, and just the general ecosystem. I find it quite crazy how much happened in those 2 years.
It is. So let's jump in. We're going to structure that a bit into like rough topics, but without a huge script or so. We want to give you some insight on our current strategy and our current day-to-day lives somehow, and then kind of advance to the next topic. So we have, for example, another topic to talk about the future combat system coming up, to talk about crafting coming up, and so on. And this is meant to be just using the time we have and hopefully giving you some information, but with a personal touch. So don't expect super condensed information, but two friends chatting about their plans, and that's what we're going to do. And this is today about you, as Lou said in the moderation, kind of you don't see so much happening from like the Discord and so on, but there's heaps and heaps of stuff happening. For example, I've been working in a product management job in my day job, and I've quit, and it's like the 6th week of me working full time on it, and like I can already feel so how much is changing and how much is going on. But this might not necessarily reflect in the communication you see on Discord, and that's why we chose to give you this format to look a bit behind the scenes what we have, and if you stay with us, you'll also hear some alpha pieces. So maybe Lou, you can tell us a bit about like how our perception changed a bit, going from kind of this freemium and mercenary thing to kind of the game loop refinement, and what was kind of the major change coming up and this kind of leading 2023 and the rest of 2023.
Yeah, sure. So I think probably early this year we realized that like having token gated mechanisms in a game can be exciting for the holders of the token, obviously, and it is a way to generate revenue. But what you're kind of missing is the ability to onboard a lot of new players. I mean, you can obviously allow people to mint for free, for example, which then takes away kind of the exclusivity from the other token holders who may have already paid for something. So what we realized early this year is what makes the most sense for a game like ours that tries to appeal to as many people as possible is to go down a route where the onboarding process is really simple and really easy. So we kind of came up with the whole mercenary idea, having like a free-to-play mechanism where you then have to kind of buy free your mercenary to experience or to get to experience the whole game. And I think we're really happy with that, and we're definitely going with it. But what we then kind of realized is, okay, what happens if we have those eyes? What happens if we have those players all of a sudden in the game? And what do we do with them afterwards? Like, what are they able to do? Are they just able to do missions? Do we just create some new points of interest and release some new content for that? And then we kind of realized, okay, I think we're missing something majorly. And we have already been developing, for example, expeditions, which is like our dungeon mechanism, kind of a mixture out of Binding of Isaac and Diablo for a bunch of months already. But we kind of realized, okay, before we can even go down this free-to-play route, we definitely have to lock in a gameplay loop that is engaging, that is retention holding, that is addictive. So what we kind of decided to do is to focus and use this rest of the year to really hone in on the gameplay idea. I think this whole ball basically got rolling when we looked into Will. I'm not sure what this whole name is, but it's like from Alliance, and looked into stuff like Proof of Play, who raised a bunch of money to basically create a game like we do, but they prioritize gameplay first. Yeah, and we kind of set ourselves this vision for the rest of the year where we really want to focus on gameplay and create a gameplay loop, especially that we can iterate on. So we want to go back to our roots a little bit, where we release something quite simple and then see how the community likes it, and then iterate over it and gradually increase the complexity as well. So yeah, I think that's our general goal now, and I'm quite happy with it because I really do think we need a really strong core in order to be able to onboard all those new people.
Yeah, and I felt it was also something the community gave us as a feedback. So some questions kind of came up. So like, why are you opening up? We're not ready. Like, I think people understood why we would make ease of onboarding But we also thought about this, and we really, yeah, as you said, like we listened to these guys that have been developing games for a long time, and they said like test, and test what's fun. And we realized we have this super amazing community of hardcore fans that are used to kind of the game loop we have now with the resources and we adding new recipes, and then there is like the rare chilies and so on, and we have all these ideas. But for us it's important that Evrloot isn't just this thing that keeps on growing as in game design to become a Frankenstein at the end, but it has kind of defined boundaries where we give it kind of a loop where we say that's kind of the core mechanics, and from here on we add content there. By the way, that's Evrloot.
Hey.
And yeah, that's kind of the next big thing. And yesterday we had, I think, 1.5 hours where we talked about the combat system and the details, and it will be quite a big challenge for us. It is still the part where we don't know. For example, like we're asking ourselves the question, when is the right time, or is it the right time to resort to game engines like Unity and so on. But we have a fully functioning or nearly fully functioning version that we can release pretty timely. So we decided, and that's also a team decision, to release something soon, as Lou said, to get you kind of in the first testing stage, and then iterate on it.
Yeah, I think a general idea, and you said like we don't want to create a Frankenstein, but we kind of want to create a Frankenstein in the sense of we want to have like a core that is really solid, but then be able to kind of attach stuff to it and gradually build it out. And obviously it shouldn't feel like out of place in general.
Let's call that a controlled Frankenstein.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's obviously, or I mean, with a team the size of ours that is just pretty small. I mean, we're not a big game studio who has tens of, maybe even hundreds of developers working on specific parts of the game. We are quite small, so we do have to be aware of that and not bite off more than we can chew, if we can call it like that. So yeah, I really do like this approach of releasing something quite simple. I mean, Brandon, one of our developers, has already been putting a lot of work into Expeditions. So we do have even more, I think, than like a general MVP. We do have like even a global event prepared basically for that, which is going to be quite exciting. I think at least I'm pretty looking forward to getting to see how people perceive that, even with a leaderboard and everything. So I do think we already have more, but we kind of also with Expeditions, I think, lost this quick iterative approach we had in the beginning, where we were like, okay, let's just push it out, see how people perceive it, and then keep going. I think we kind of, with time, the expectations we had to ourselves, and I'm not sure how you see it, Deckard, we never talked about this, but I feel like we with the expectations we have on ourselves also kind of, they just grew naturally. So we kind of weren't willing to just push out whatever anymore, simply because we thought we needed to do more. But I think if it goes back to like the roots and how we did it at the beginning, nobody was pissed or anything, and we're still in a pretty small space. So I think they even appreciate us being really raw. So yeah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. So I attribute maybe parts of this to at one point we had no machine running, and we just started making this Kraken mission to kind of like blend technology with the first experience. And today we have a kind of a functioning game economy and people playing every day and transactions going on, where we also feel kind of this pressure of adding incrementally adding stuff to it. So I think the situation changed a bit, but I do agree. What you say is that we lost this focus somehow of shipping something shitty to improve on that, but rather kind of wait for ages and got kind of I got annoyed myself a bit from my teasering, like, oh, this big thing is coming, oh, this big thing is coming, but actually the frequency of releasing got yeah, you're right, it got
Yeah, I think
smaller.
I've always been trying to push back on it a little bit, and I think we got pretty good in our general communication with each other. But I think you've given me the feedback sometimes as well, where sometimes I have a hard time kind of expressing myself, and then I just seem like I'm annoyed or that I'm just pissed off. While in general, I want to be like, okay, this is my thinking process. We need to go somewhere else. But rather than being able to properly communicate it, I'm just like, that's not how it works, Deckard. We need to do something else. And I think I kind of tried to do that a couple of months ago, where I was like, okay, I think the ideas that are now flowing into expeditions are just too big. We should release something smaller. But I didn't take the time to properly think about it. So all that kind of came out was like, no, we're not doing a global whatever mission now. We're not doing this or this now. But I do think, yeah, the last weeks I tried to think about it, and I realized that it's probably because I, yeah, forgot to think about it in a sense of we need to go back to the roots and try to go really basic.
I mean, if it's really interesting to think about it, because one thing, like, we've been, like, I think since November last year, we've been building up stuff that no one has ever seen yet. So if we, for example, think about the free folk and the new characters coming, how much work Travis put into that, and it has never seen the light of day. It is still the plan, and we're definitely going to use it, so it's definitely worth the time, but we wouldn't have done that at the very start to work nearly a year in the shadow on something. And I think it's also not the most effective to work like this. I think it's much more effective to, obviously, if you mint an NFT, you can't just change it every few weeks. That's fully clear. But it's another argument for what you said. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's kind of hard being, especially when we're such a small team. It's kind of hard working, like you said, in the shadows and kind of preparing stuff and being really excited about it. And I think that's a big reason why we want to start this like little mini series as well, because we want to give you an insight into our thoughts and where we're coming from. Because I think it's hard to understand. I think a big problem we have is what I wouldn't call it a problem, but we're not really big shillers. I think, and we said that from the beginning, we obviously want to hype up stuff, and and I think we got better at marketing over the time as well. But we don't want to be the type of guy that releases 10 white papers and then never delivers on an actual product. So I think both you and I always were kind of afraid in the back of our heads to be perceived as such people. So I think we find it kind of hard, because even all the drawings and stuff you guys do, you and Austin mostly, on game theory stuff and things in that direction. I find those super fascinating, and I'm sure if we would just put them into a white paper, it would be super hype to people. But I feel like we kind of aren't degen enough in that sense to really do that often. So, yeah.
Let's take a quick time to introduce some of the team, because, like, we're talking about us both, and this mini series is mostly about kind of our both experience of this, but just give a shout out to our team, and let's talk about everyone for a second, so that you know it. Maybe let me start. I'll show you today's. Here we have. That's our third co-founder. That's Evrloot. So he's kind of in charge for the finance and all tax and legal stuff. That's our office here, actually. So it's kind of a medieval space here in the old town. So horse carts used to go from here through there. So that's why you have this very open space. Then we have Lou and me. Obviously, Lou doing the technical part. I'm doing more of the kind of, we share a lot of work, but I'm more kind of steering the content side while Lou is steering the technical side. Then we have, let me introduce the content side. We have Oswin. He's also taking this leap of faith like I did and quit his job and working full time on Evrloot now. Osman started as a lore guy who's been very active with the whole of the fleshing out the lore for like you've seen about 10% of that. I'm really excited that there is so much more already. But he transitioned with me into game design, and we're currently designing how the whole game wraps up in these mechanics. And yeah, it's very nice to work with him together. So we have dailies every day nearly, and yeah, it's really cool. But then we have Travis. Travis is our artist. He's really good with all of so he's working on NFTs and new armor and stuff. So I've teased a bit of a piece of armor that you've seen in Discord maybe. So he's working on all of that. So you have new clothing for your characters and new characters themselves. So that's a full job in itself to work on these, because they will look super cool. And he's our kind of Photoshop and art ninja. Yeah, and then we can directly jump over to the tech side.
Yeah. So there's me, obviously. I'm not doing as much simply because there's like a lot of, I guess, administrational stuff to do, but I've been getting more and more into back lately, of like front end stuff and back end stuff. Back in the day, I built like the whole back end, QBG built the whole front end. Now we kind of like divide everything kind of, pretty proportionally. And then there's obviously QBG, who's been here almost since day one. It was actually kind of funny. So maybe just to give some context, everybody in our team basically approached us. So we weren't ever really looking for people to hire or anything. We were kind of just throwing out this vision of Evrloot. And we had those people approaching us and being like, oh, I really like the direction this thing is going. Can I maybe participate? I have a couple of hours here and there. I do like NFTs, or I do like gaming or whatever. And we somehow got lucky enough to build out this team that now is pretty passionate and sharing one vision. But it's been an awesome process of basically getting together these really passionate folks who kind of, align on the vision of wanting to build something cool. So there's QBG, who back in the day wrote us like a white paper, basically trying to convince us why we should give him a go. He wrote like this 15-page Google Doc where he was like, that's the vision I can see going. And it would actually be interesting to look back at that document. I'm just realizing now and see kind of where we have been moving, because I think a lot of the contract stuff has actually been implemented already. But yeah, getting sidetracked. So he's insanely productive. I have no idea how he does it, but he's a maniac when it comes to programming. And then we have Brandon as well, who is our latest joiner, I guess. But it's already been quite some time he has joined as well. And he does mostly front-end stuff. He comes basically from a no-coding background and wanted to get into... Well, he didn't really want to. He just gave a lot of feedback as a player in Evrloot. And then someday I just thought to myself, why not just ask him if he wants to implement some of those changes he would like to see. And I scheduled a call with him, and he was like, yeah, I'm going to give it a try. So... since then, he has grown immensely. It's quite impressive how far he has gotten already, especially in the programming space. But he does a lot of the front-end stuff. He spent a lot of time doing expeditions. And it's quite a pleasure to work with him. And that's basically it. And we have Summer Shades as well. We can't forget about Summer Shades. He's not a part of the official team, I guess, but he does a lot of the Discord bot programming, and he's been of great help as well. But yeah, I think that's mostly it.
And then we have that's the technical side, and then we have he's not been sorted into content or technical, but Seppi is kind of community management. So he's also been here since, I think he was one of the first guys who joined our Discord.
I think he was the first, probably.
I think he was the
Knowing
first.
knowing Seppi and knowing how active he is on Twitter and everywhere, he was probably the first.
Yeah, so a special credit goes out to Seppi for really discovering us the very, very first. And yeah, always having a good view about the ecosystem and giving good feedback. Okay, that's the team. I think, Lou, would you say
Let's wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up. So thank you for
Yeah.
tuning in today. Yeah, next times we're going to make small meeting about the crafting, most probably, and give you some new impressions from our daily life. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to publish that mostly. We're not sure if it's going to be a podcast or if it's just a video. So let's see how this ends up getting into your ears and eyes. And see you soon. Bye-bye.